everybody. Hope you're all having a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to everybody watching. My name is Thomas Sheedy, president and founder of Atheists for Liberty, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that fights for free speech, free thinking, and freedom for all. Over the past year, we have tripled our audience when it comes to people that are tuning in and watching the streams. We have an array of guests that have helped us create more content and identify problems that we as individuals and we as a collective group can tackle in terms of safeguarding Western civilization, protecting our right to speak, our right to be free for and free from religion. Really, these streams have galvanized the organization. We've had more outreach, more media input, thanks to all of you. We take all the ideas that you guys give to us when you become members and get into our ideas channel, and we adapt that. We now have more content coming on more than ever. The updates that we're going to be having just within the next few months, thanks to all of you, when it comes to our shorts coming out, our streams coming out more. Expect a whole new setup. I've just been so busy being busy as president, enjoying the holiday season more and more, that quite often I get too distracted because we're doing so many more great things in 2024 as an organization. But for those that are watching right now, welcome to the channel. Glad to have all of you here, especially as we end the new year in such an amazing based way. And I couldn't think of a more amazing guest to have on than James Lindsay himself, who's been our advisory board for a while. So I'll introduce him on the show in a moment. But again, thank you all so much for tuning in. It means a lot. This is going to be a great show. And if you like seeing what you're seeing already, you like my long monologue, be sure to like the video, comment below what you think of things so far, and we'll showcase your questions and comments on the stream. But first off, our member of the week is going to be Gregory Coricello, guys. So be like Gregory and become a member of Atheists for Liberty today at atheistsforliberty.org. Again, that's atheistsforliberty.org. We have a donor match that's actually being done thanks to our advisory board chairman, David Silverman. He donated $10,000 for us to max out, and we're nearly there. Just a few days until we reach that zero mark on not having to match anything else, thanks to all of your support. So if you want to become a part of a new movement, you're an atheist, agnostic, secularist, you want to be part of a new energetic and reactionary movement that fights for the right ideals, go to atheistsforliberty.org today and join the movement and get in the fight. It's going to be awesome. So, want to also do a quick little ad thanks to the sponsor of today's video, Blood of Tyrants. So the winemakers at Blood of Tyrants overthrow the rules to bring you luscious flavors curated through centuries of rebellion. Free men don't ask permission, which is why the team at Blood of Tyrants have continued to perfect these soft yet full-body flavors no matter how hard the tyrants tried to stop them. When you're feeling a little devious, relinquish the cork and indulge. The greatest terror is realizing you've reached the last drop. Guys, use code ATHEIST10 at checkout at the Blood of Tyrants website. I'm going to get this right up here real quick at drinkbloodoftyrants.com. Again, that's drinkbloodoftyrants.com. You want some wine to finish off the holidays and the new year, use code ATHEIST10 at checkout. You'll be supporting a growing nonprofit in the process, so it means a lot. So let's get James Lindsay on here. So he needs no further introduction, runs New Discourses, amazing ally and advisor to Atheists for Liberty, the based man himself. James Lindsay, welcome to the channel again.
Hey, Thomas, good to see you.
Good to see you too. We've been wanting to get you on the program already for a few weeks, but you told me some personal circumstances, including some sickness, and I'm very glad to see you in much better health. You're looking great, ready as always to state some awesome, interesting things for the program, and we got a lot of people tuning in, so I really greatly appreciate it. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so. Got a little flu, so, well, it's over, but I still got a little scratchy, so if I sound off, there you go.
All right, guys, don't be too harsh on James in the comments, okay? Give him a break. It's a new year. Let's just relax a little bit. We'll be the ones doing the ranting, okay? Not you. None of you have to do that. Just ask some nice questions and we'll get to it. So, want to go into our first question. So, I consider you to be the nation's top expert on wokeness right now. You are great at examining all the focal points as to where academically and intellectually these nut jobs try to target our institutions, from the private sector to major corporations to the the halls of Congress itself, you get into the nitty gritty details and you show people, not only through your work and your discourses, but also on your X account, kind of where these people are coming from and how to best fight them. I think we've done a great job as an anti-woke movement nationwide in combating wokeism in so many regards, from the Bud Light boycott to boycotting Target for a while, to doing all these things to really show that we need to kind of fight fire with these people. They hate us, and we need to do what we can to show them that we're not going to take it anymore. In your view, throughout the course of the year, what have we done in 2023 that has worked, and where do we need to go from here?
Oh gosh, it's been a big year. A lot of woke has happened. People have noticed that there's a bit of an accelerating trajectory to their agenda, I think, but they're also noticing an accelerating or growing dissatisfaction with it among the general public. What started off kind of as activist fatigue, you see the activists complain about this. So everybody, George Floyd died. Oh my God, everybody has to go out on the street for 8 months. Everybody loses their mind. And then all of a sudden, about a year in, they're writing articles like, why won't anybody still go protest? And it's because there's this thing called activist fatigue. Well, this has gone like way past that. It's like the whole movement with the majority of the population has soured. Normal people are just dead sick of it. The only people who are really into it are the people who are really into it. And it's not really picking up recruits very easily the way that it used to. I think people are becoming more aware of the lies. So we've done some things successfully. I've seen a lot of organizing. I've seen a lot of people getting their heads around the issue. Primarily what I like to do, or what I try to do, is provide a vocabulary for people to be able to deal with woke, to understand what's happening. Somebody said that I'm like the Rosetta Stone for woke recently, and I took that as quite the compliment. That's what I actually strive to do. I don't want to have to solve the world's problems, but I can give you a vocabulary to understand what these people are talking about and what these documents are about. So you mentioned a number of things. Before I talk about things that we've done, I want to point out that, as almost always is the case, so far as there are kind of a couple of different things going on. One is we're trying to like mobilize our side to do stuff, to fight back against woke. And that's mostly a matter of getting them to see how serious it is, and the fact that it doesn't seem to go away by itself. Look at Harvard, look at Claudine Gay. She is white knuckling. I don't know if it's racist to say she's white knuckling, but she is white knuckling power like nobody's business right now. She is not going to let it go. And so that freaks normal people out. But the majority of the way that we move against woke is by providing people that vocabulary and that comprehension, so that when they step in the mud, we're able to make it very clear what's happening. There's these kind of breakthrough moments. The biggest breakthrough moment, of course, I think in the entire circumstance was in 2020, when all of a sudden protests were allowed if they were for BLM, but they were not allowed if you were protesting the wrong thing. And,
Right.
A veil was lifted, and a lot of people saw that something is very bogus here. Well, we've had a number of incidents this year, I think, that lifted the veil. And luckily, we were able to position ourselves to where we understood a lot more of what was going on, so that people could have an interpretation that didn't keep them kind of caught in the woke net. So I have to give a ton of credit to the Wokies for helping us out here. But, there's the whole huge movement that bled over from last year of sexualizing children, the groomers, the drag queens, the whole thing. And that really freaked people out. So like the first 4 to 5 months of 6 months almost of this year, especially, I guess, till May, that was still on an accelerating course. It was really getting people's attention. We were doing a great job of exposing that, but it was also freaking out normal people. Why is this getting worse? Of course, if you read their literature, the Beautiful Trouble book, for example, they talk about engaging in escalating provocation. So I diagnosed it. That's what that was. Then we thank a Wokey not for doing something terrible, but for opening eyes. And in this case, we ended up in May with a trans person doing a mass shooting at a school, and that kind of derailed that whole movement. All of a sudden, even Pride got quiet. Everything just kind of dropped off the map with that entire mass line. And I significantly suspect it had to do with the fact that the trans shooter caught way too many people's attention in a way that drew very negative visibility to, as I like to say it, trans violence is violence. that there's actually an underlying problem there. They were planning, when that happened, something called a trans day of vengeance, for example. And we'd been doing a great job of exposing that. So it shows part of the rule, which is that if you expose what they're doing so that the normal people out there in the watching audience kind of know what's happening, their manipulations and lies don't work. Another one, of course, you mentioned the Bud Light boycott, the Target boycott, some of these other corporate boycotts, but the Bud Light was by far the most successful. I'm pretty frustrated with that one. I feel like it's like we got the football, we ran 8 yards and just stopped. You know, rather than going into first down territory, we didn't get stopped. We just stood there. Like, look, guys, I ran 8 yards or something. Like, give me a
I did the running. I did the work. Can we go back to normal now?
Yeah, we taught that company a lesson. And it's like but there's reasons that this is happening. Companies aren't just going woke. So we've got a lot more work to do. That was a very effective boycott, and it actually showed that we can weaponize consumer behavior in a very useful way. But we've got to parlay that into taking more meaningful action. And what more meaningful action looks like, it doesn't look like Kid Rock with a machine gun and a case of Bud Light and then him drinking Bud Light like a few months later. What it looks like actually is getting a House or Senate committee hearing, asking corporate executives hard questions. Were there incentives involved in you doing this? Where did those incentives come from? Were you required to? Were there threats? Did it have to do with your access to lines of credit, as people speculated through ESG and corporate equality index numbers? Do you care about the corporate equality index number? Why do you care about a number published by the Human Rights Campaign this much that you're willing to take billions of dollars of damage to your brand? So we've got to take these things to the next step and stop thinking that like culture war, flash in the pan success equals victory. The left has been strategically infiltrating our institutions for 50 years, and we have to be able to actually take the next step beyond just getting the attention, the moral victory on our side. But that was still a very big one. And it actually revealed to us, and I think it awakened the movement to believing that it can actually have some power against this monster. The greatest mass awakening, I think, has occurred. I mentioned Harvard earlier, but this is all kind of downstream from what happened on October 7th. And so for almost 3 months now, the biggest pulling back of the veil of how evil woke is for the average person has really been kind of a defining moment for the last quarter of the year. It's impossible to see them like, what was it, yesterday, I guess, was Christmas. So they're like setting fire to Christmas trees or whatever it is they're doing, trying to destroy Christmas celebrations. Maybe the setting fire to Christmas trees I'm mixing up with a story that's old. It doesn't matter. But they're trying to, they openly were saying that they're going to destroy Christmas. They were trying to destroy Christmas. They punched New York City cops like at Christmas. And they're like, we're going to ruin Christmas. Like, we're the Grinch that stole Christmas. We're like,
yeah, it's like, good luck with that.
We're blocking traffic, blah, blah, blah. And this has penetrated. They have managed to do, in a sense, what they want, which is get attention. But the attention is actually horrifying people. And it's not hard to draw the line very directly. On actually October 7th, people were already talking about the decolonization literature and saying that, of course, it was going to be violent. And they were able to find examples of scholars on the left pointing out that that's exactly what they intended. And so we've done a very good job of, it's like, you can't stop the left from doing its horrible stuff. Not really, but you can make it so that it doesn't advance their agenda. And in fact, causes more people to become suspicious of their agenda and turn away from their agenda. And I think we're starting to get fairly good at that. We're seeing a lot of kind of awareness now that the rot is extremely deep. Harvard, I think our biggest success is actually
they got embarrassed.
Harvard just completely tank its brand. Like Mark's safe from going to Harvard today. That's a meme. Like, friends don't let friends send their kids to Harvard. Like, that's a meme. Like, it's really bad. Stop hiring Harvard graduates has been kind of my campaign on that. Which I've been hearing is happening anyway. I'm just like kind of nudging along something that's already happening.
I've gotten on board with Peter's campaign to tell people, like, stop donating to your alma mater. Stop giving money to these institutions who hate you, who hate your values, who hate your very existence, who think you're part of this corrupt, evil system that is the United States, and built on these Enlightenment values, built on racism and sexism, and we need to destroy them. Why, out of this economic or educational niceness do we feel as anti-woke people to still want to get back to our alma mater? Like, we say something nice against wokeness on the cameras, but then when it comes to our private life, we do whatever we can to not upset anybody. And then you have all these colleges still getting the same exact funding from these people that the colleges bash, that all the gender studies professors and all the woke professors go after. Oh, but we don't want to cause trouble. I'll just give you a nice little donation, James. I'll give money to Atheists for Liberty or New Discourses, but I still want to give money to my alma mater. Great. Yeah, thanks for continuing to be part of the freaking problem. Have you encountered some of those people who are willing to talk the talk on that, but not actually put in the work?
I mean, a little bit. I think that people still have very strong and resonant, like emotional and effective ties to their alma mater. It was an important thing to them. In some cases, it was an important thing to their family. They worked hard to, get a degree. It gave them a step up in life. They wanted to give that, a lot of them are legacy kids. They want to give it to their kids too. And there's like, this whole kind of complicated emotional thing. And I mean, I get that. And they don't want to rock the boat because I don't know, I still get freaking letters from my colleges asking me for money, even though I've studiously ignored them for years. But the thing is, what people have to realize, and I'm going to just borrow straight from Brett Weinstein here. You mentioned Peter. Peter and I were at Brett Weinstein's house like a little over 5 years ago, and we had dinner and we were talking to Brett and Heather, and there are a few others there. And Brett was standing there we weren't in the kitchen anymore. We were in the next thing across the way or whatever. And we're standing there and he says, the universities are sick and we have to understand what kind of sickness they have. Do they have the flu? In which case they're going to have a bout of fever. They're probably going to recover on their own. They're going to get better. They'll course correct. Do they have cancer? Is it the kind of cancer that we can treat? Is it operable? Do we need something like radiation? Or is it metastatic cancer? In which case it's toast. Or kind of worst case scenario, and this is sort of Brett's genius. He said, does the university system have rabies? Because once your dog gets rabies, it ain't your dog anymore. It doesn't matter how much you love your dog. This is exactly what he said. It doesn't matter how much you love your dog. Once it gets rabies, it ain't your dog anymore. And it's a danger to itself and others. And the thing is I just don't think people realize, and we're starting to get to pull that back for people. Certainly Bill Ackman's getting an eyeful of it right now with Harvard. He's a Harvard alumnus. And people are just starting to get this notion that the universities they're not, young people and some weird faculty off course a little bit. They are structurally really bad, and they're designed structurally to reinforce those errors. Hundreds of DEI faculty or administration, I really should say, per campus. Just an extraordinary administrative apparatus meant to keep that going. The professors are completely ideologically locked because of years and years and years, decades now of selective pressures at work and in hiring and in promotion and tenure. Student body that is virtually out of control in significant numbers. It's not the entire student body, but it's significant numbers. I mean, I gave a talk at Northwestern University sometime over the summer, or I guess it had to be in the spring because before school let out. And they let a bunch of the woke kids in to heckle me while I talked. And it's like, whatever. And when I would talk, I was talking about how intersectionality derives from Maoist thinking. And when I was talking and I'd bring up Mao and Mao rounding up and killing landlords and things, the woke kids would cheer. So it's like, I don't think that they're ignorant to what they're doing. I think
they're not on the same plane of existence as you.
And
they're in a completely different world. And I started to accept that.
The faculty, the administration are caught by them too. I mean, I've heard this from so many CEOs that the thing that they're the most afraid of is their own employees. They're not that afraid of a bad PR run in the news or whatever. They're not that afraid of the New York Times, although it can do some major damage. What they're most afraid of is a woke earthquake happening in their own employees. So you get a handful or a small percentage even of woke employees, and it can cause a nightmare inside your entire organization. Well, in universities, it's not everybody, but it's not a small percentage. It's a very significant percentage. In fact, it's the largest percentage of any subpopulation is the woke subpopulation of colleges. And so it's a nightmare. So these things have rabies effectively. It's not even metastatic cancer. It's rabies, and everything that they bite gets infected and is going to have to either go through a very horrific treatment, or it's going to also get rabies, infect other things, and die. And we're watching this play out with Harvard, but people are giving money because they haven't realized it's that bad. I remember, actually, I'm not going to take some credit I don't deserve, because Brett was saying that in 2018 that he thought that the university might have rabies. And I thought, that's just crazy. I don't know. No way. And, we had literally just done the grievance studies affair. We were at his house because we had told him earlier in the afternoon, before anybody knew about it, like 2 days before it came out, 3 days before it came out. It was the end of September in 2018. And I thought, no, it can still self-correct. It can course correct. But no, it can't. And giving money to these things is just an absolute catastrophe. It's not enough, though, frankly. What actually, the universities, especially ones like Harvard, have $50+ billion endowments. They can stand to lose a bill or two. It's not a big deal for them. I've heard of state schools that got threatened by their state government. We're going to cut off your funding if you don't get rid of the DEI, and they're like, it's only 11% of our budget. Why do we care? Like, we'll just raise tuition. We'll just charge the kids more. They're not worried about it. And so, like, with the money, the only path I see is to fix it. And this is why I push this campaign. And I don't think it's going to be everybody. And of course, I don't mean everybody, but you have to be simple for a campaign, which is stop hiring college graduates, and then give the guys who graduate, the people who graduate, an opportunity to turn around and sue the school for damaging the brand of the degree that they just earned. The school, I don't know where it is, but there's a clever legal argument that the school has a fiduciary duty to deliver on the degree having value, whereas instead employers are now looking at university degrees as huge liabilities. I just saw a survey showing of 800 employers that was popped up on my Instagram, said that 47% or 45%, something like that, of employers in this survey see they're dropping, I should say, the college degree requirement for many of their jobs because they see it as a liability. And if you allow the students who get robbed of their future because the university has decided to play fast and loose with its brand an opportunity to turn around and sue, imagine you just paying $400,000 to go to Harvard. And like, you can't, nobody wants you right now. You are a seriously toxic asset. Whose fault is that? Well, it might be partly yours and on you. Maybe you joined one of those clubs. But on the other hand, it's really not insignificantly on Harvard. And Harvard is just tanking its brand. And imagine, I can't imagine.
Yeah. It's something where I wonder, I think we're going to be successful. I think we're actually going to win more normal people. It's not even just a conservative thing. It's not a right-wing thing. A lot of just average apolitical people are now waking up to this. And you've done a great job at waking people up on the matter. And so many of your colleagues and our colleagues in this fight have done a great job on that. So I think we are going to win at the end of the day. But I also do think that an institution such as Harvard, even though I just made the comment that they're basically committing suicide, I do think that the name and the brand of Harvard, just like all these Ivy Leagues at least, are still going to exist at the end of the day. What I would love to be is I would love someone like you and me and others and the Weinstein brothers. I would love us to be flies on the wall in the future, a year from now. Right, speaking of end of year stuff. Speaking of all that, a fly on the wall at these meetings, these board meetings, where they go, oh shit, we've taken a big giant hit. We've existed for hundreds upon hundreds of years. We want to keep the name Harvard in a healthy, positive manner. We want more people to continue to go here. We still want America to send its best and its brightest to this institution. What can we do to change? Because you still have some fairly anti-woke people that are still there. Mainly they've only been there because they've been able to, not get ratted out or fired. Like Steven Pinker is an example, I guess you could say, and a few other people that have such a long-standing history there. But I think eventually there might be a time where these people wake up and go, okay, you know what? This is much larger than some silly DEI program we wanted to instill. Let's keep the legacy of these institutions alive. What can we do to bring normal people back to the university?
Yeah, they. I think that if the universities do course correct or get course corrected, really is a better way to put it, they're going to come following with their tail between their legs at the brink of their own obsolescence. So they are going to be right up to the edge that people are going to figure out other ways to verify uh, and credential potential employees in a much more efficient way, with much less of the bloat, much less of the baggage, none of the brainwashing and indoctrination. And the universities are going to put their tail between their legs and try to recover, but only when they hit the brink of complete collapse. It's just really bad. But what you just said with the fly on the wall, since we're talking about successes, I'm glad you said that, because it made me think we might very well end up at not being a fly on the wall, but having access to a fly on that wall, because another major success is in just the last few months. And this is, again, I don't want to give, I do want to give credit to people who are doing great work, but I don't want to credit him. I want to credit the crowd. But James O'Keefe has been doing these kinds of exposés for a long time. And we just saw his expose of IBM. We saw another one like Solofi, or I don't know how to pronounce it. I know how to spell it. He needs to do an expose on my light, which keeps changing colors. If you wonder what that's about, I don't know what's happening. But what James is talking about, he's doing ones on the border now, or with the airlines and the concierge services that are moving. I don't want to use the M word, because they're moving illegal aliens around the country in huge numbers. And the thing is what James is reporting is that the dam has broken on whistleblowers. And I don't know if you remember back in 2020, actually, right after George Floyd died, I was like, we need whistleblowers, we need whistleblowers, we need whistleblowers. And James has always been a conduit to that. And people have been so scared. Well, the dam has broken. And it's like with this airline thing or with the IBM thing, like I went and did the space with him when he was breaking the story about IBM and their DEI requirements on Twitter or X or whatever. I was in the space with him, and you literally had people like calling his signal number. You had and going live just spontaneously to whistleblow more. You had people showing up to the space like on the spot. And the problem that he's starting to have now is that he's getting, every time something happens, they can't even have an all hands meeting or a partial hands meeting in the corporations or the institutions, because whistleblowers are coming out of the woodwork to come tattle. And it's amazing. And this actually, like James says, is going to spill the guts of what's actually been going on inside these. If we can't end up getting our Senate hearing because we marched to 8 yards forward and just stopped for no reason, like Matt Walsh declares victory, where it's all good, guys. Okay, we showed our power. I don't know what the hell that was, but this spilling the guts from the inside thing is huge. So when it comes to the point where I mean, I think this year is going to be very interesting when it comes to the point like where big meetings go down at Harvard. Is he going to have a whistleblower in the room? Maybe. Very, very possibly. In lots of other domains. I mean, think of all the domains where we know corruption is happening. We got corporate, we got NGOs, we've got these different, like big companies, but we've also got universities. There are a lot of universities. Harvard's a big target. We've got all of these kind of other nonprofits like the Trevor Project. We've got, what's going on at Human Rights Campaign. Imagine if you end up getting a couple of people in there.
The atheist community.
Yeah, no kidding. You've got a million places where whistleblowers are just going to be able to start pouring forth. And if, imagine elections, like crap, like just imagine if the dam has truly broken, like James has said. Just imagine the possibilities of spilling the guts of all of this. That's a huge thing that people have finally realized, that being afraid only makes it last longer and worse. And even if you have to do it anonymously with whistleblower layers of protection or whatever, the telling the truth is the only way out of this. Showing what's really going on is really the only path out. It's going to be an amazing year in that regard. Now, of course, it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be a fun year. I have a feeling that we're going to get hit with some crazy, crazy stuff from the left and from what I like to refer to as the masters of the universe, in want of a better name for they that we have to give a name. If you say they, everybody thinks you're talking about Jews. I'm not talking about Jews. I'm talking about the masters of the universe, who seem to look like Klaus Schwab and or King Charles and some other very royal people and such. But it's going to be a wild freaking year. Then they're going to fight like hell. But again, how many whistleblowers are we going to have inside those things when they decide to pull stunts? Are we
Oh,
going
it's
to start
like
getting
Christmas morning.
whistleblowers
We're
from
going to
inside
wake up to
intelligence
even
communities?
more.
I mean, it's just incredible what the possibilities are. So you talk about victories. Much credit to the unbelievable fight. Like in some cases, I think literally in a sense for his life, James O'Keefe has gone through to become this beacon that has opened the whistleblower dam.
Yeah, I remember hearing about what happened with him and when he was with Veritas and leaving Veritas and all that stuff. I'm glad that he got back up on his feet because we need people like him.
Oh God, yeah. I mean that
getting
raided by the FBI in his underpants, like the whole thing, like it's terrible.
And I think they made an example out of him. I think what the woke have done to him, what the woke religion has done to people like James O'Keefe, they're going to do that to all of us, or they're going to try to do it to all of us. The more we grow, the more we'll be a target. But I always say this as an atheist, you'll only live once. You might as well end that life fighting for what is right.
The thing is, the more of us that are succeeding, the less of a target each of us becomes. And actually, we do generate safety in numbers.
Yeah.
When there's lots and lots and lots of us fighting back, they can't actually single you out and pick you off. They might try to, but what happens is that person becomes a cause celeb and you end up with a gigantic amount of resources poured into helping and propping them up. And at the very, very least, their story goes, and whatever it is that they were doing that got them attacked gets far more attention than it would have otherwise through the Streisand effect and whatever else. And so it puts actually the Masters of the Universe team in a fairly bad position. And it's been a banner year for, I mean, I can't express, James is always very thankful to the whistleblowers themselves for their courage. And he's always saying, it's not me, it's you. It's not me, it's you. And his motto back when he was at Veritas was do something, right? And that was literally his motto, was do something, meaning you go do something, not like wait for James to make a video chasing some guy through the street to ask him questions. And that plane is off the ground now, it looks like.
And it's not going to stop. So actually, this is where, well, first off, I'm going to make a little advertisement here. So guys, if you're watching on Twitter or X, you like what we're talking about here, you want to be a part of the conversation, you want to be a part of the movement more. If you're watching this from X, or if you're watching this anywhere else, go on x.com or twitter.com, follow us at Atheist Liberty. Follow our page there. It's growing. We come up with a lot of new updates on what we're doing as an organization, but also plenty of culture war updates, like stuff like this. It's very important that all of you stay up to speed. So please, please, please follow us on X at Atheist Liberty and turn on notifications on our profile there. It's very important that all of you do. We need all of you in this battle. And I am so proud that James has been one of our earliest advisors in AFL, being a part of this fight with us. We need to combat this from all kinds of sectors. And for all the atheists, all the agnostics, and all the secularists in this fight, we need you with us too. So please, please, please go to Twitter, go to X. I'm just going to call it X. I've got to change that banner. Follow us at Atheist Liberty on there. Thanks. Means a lot. And again, if you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. It takes 2 seconds, helps the algorithm, helps us reach more people. So I want to get into one little question that somebody brought up. I normally don't like to do Q&As from the audience until after we're done with the main conversation, but I was going to ask this anyways, and Mars beat me to it. Hi, Mars. Mars asked this, and our good friend Peter Boghossian, another advisor at Atheists for Liberty. Peter has a running bet with Chris Rufo that wokeness will die in 6 months. Do you share his optimism, or is Peter going to be down 1K when June rolls around? I'm curious to hear your answer on this.
Yeah, that's an insufficiently clear question because I don't know what wokeness dying means. Maybe if Peter defines some, I mean, good for him throwing some money at something. That's fun. But what does it mean for wokeness to die? Like, in my opinion, woke has more or less died culturally. I've been calling it a zombie ideology for a while, which means it's dead, but it's still going. And in fact, it's still eating people's brains. And the reason I think it's a zombie ideology is because I don't think it's net popular I think it's actually a huge net liability right now with the general public. Although it does have its super fans still. They show up to my events and dress like fools and act like idiots and yell at buildings. But for the most part, it is losing popularity, has lost popularity. I hear a lot of people think it's quite cringe, as they say. But institutionally, there's no indication whatsoever that it's slowing down. So is it going to die overall, like go away? Like Peter's out of grand? No way. The institutions are going to white knuckle this thing as hard as they can, with one possible caveat. It is entirely possible, because the masters of the universe who are dumping the money into all this literally do not give a crap what ideology they use to get their way. So they might flip completely Nazi instead of total commie. Like they might go from Stalin to Hitler in the middle of the year next year, in which case woke is going to meet a very untimely end. But I don't think that institutionally, I mean, you're talking thousands and thousands and thousands. I mean, tens of thousands, literally, maybe more than that, maybe even getting up near, six figures of people whose entire job is to implement this in institutions, whether universities, municipalities. I mean, for God's sake, Peter lives on the border of Washington, like in Oregon. Like, dude, go talk to some people in Washington. They're literally trying to embed this stuff so that you can't pull it out for 50 years and your 6 months runs out along. Of course, now on the other side of this bet, you do have Rufo, who does live there in Washington. And I think he's probably talked to some of the people who see them implementing this so that it gets embedded, as they say. This is always what they say: for 50 years, it'll be impossible to pull it up for 50 years. But the Biden administration isn't going to back off of this. Equity and inclusion are basically their core values. Wokeness is baked into the Sustainable Development Goals for Agenda 2030. It's actually explicit in most of the 17 goals, but it is literally like the defining characteristic of some of them, like gender equality and reduce inequalities. So those are, if I remember right off the top of my head, numbers 5 and either 10 or 11. I can't remember. 10, I think, is reduce inequalities. It's the straight up communism one. And like it's not going away. That's a 2030 agenda. Unless the United Nations also falls in 6 months, like that's not going away. I
Yeah,
talked to a guy at the ARC thing where in London with Jordan Peterson's Alliance for Responsible Citizenship. Peter was there with me, but I talked to a guy from Kenya, and he said that they're implementing the comprehensive sexuality education stuff in their schools in Kenya. You know
yeah.
why? Because it comes from UNESCO, which is at the United Nations, which means to all of the member states. So 6 months, like Peter, I love how excited you get, but no way. Not institutionally.
I would love to have a debate on the channel. So I was clicking my pen when you were beginning to answer the question. I have a call actually with Peter, everybody, after this. I'm doing a better job to update all of the advisory board on all the great things we have going on in 2024. I'm proposing this to the public. I might want to do like a Peter versus Chris Rufo debate, or maybe even like a friendly debate between the two of you, or something like that, where we can talk this out more and go into explanation as to how one side really thinks wokeness is going to die off, and one side thinks we might have a long ways to go. Number one, it'd be good content, but but it's a real conversation needs to be had, because we've made such strides. I'm more on the Chris Rufo side, the Travis Brown side. They did a street epistemology video on this topic recently, because I do think we have a ways to go to kill this zombie virus. But nevertheless, Peter's so smart too. I would love to. I haven't even seen the full street epistemology video yet. I would like to see where he's coming from on this. I'll ask him a little bit about this tonight too, but I think it's
about the definitions.
for a whole new
That's what it comes
conversation.
down to. What does he mean by dead? Because if he means that, like, by and large in public opinion polls, the public has turned on it, or you see a significant drop in the amount of support and financial support in particular that donors are giving to those causes, he might have a point. I think that we're going to see a continuing. There'll be some pretty strong, I think, operations to try to get people scared of conservatives in general, and then bend in the left direction, whatever direction it's taking. But we might see a huge, unbelievable turn in the public eye, especially with these decolonization people running around calling for intifada or whatever in New York City and everywhere else, and on every college campus in America.
Yeah, you want to ever come to New York? Let me know. I'll give you a tour. Well, I live on Long Island, so it's a much better place where I'm at. But
I was in
want to go to
Manhattan
New
in
York City and
October,
witness
like
the
almost
madness.
right afterwards, but they hadn't really kicked up fully yet.
Yeah, and we got to get talking soon. Speaking of colleges, too, we got a bunch of stuff going on. We got a college tour actually kicking off, so maybe you could help us with that as well. But boy, is a lot of it going to happen in New York, and we're in for a bunch of fireworks as a result of that, too. So we'll get chatting a little more after that as well. So want to go, of course, into our next question that I have. I want to make another little announcement. So for anybody who has Instagram, be sure to also follow us on our Instagram account at Atheists for Liberty. Again, that's Instagram at Atheists for Liberty. And also, if you're interested in becoming a member, atheistsforliberty.org, 501c3 tax-deductible contribution. You get to be a member, be a part of our exclusive online events where you get to talk to famous atheists in our Discord server, be a part of our growing online community. We're doing in-person meetups in a state and a city near you. So our state director program is growing as well, and we need volunteers too. So any contribution you guys make financially, it's going to be matched thanks to the David Silverman donor match. So if any of you are considering making your end of the year donations to growing nonprofits, please consider Atheists for Liberty. It means a lot. So I want to get into the next topic. Obviously, we are Atheists for Liberty for a reason, and we consider ourselves to be a very principled organization. We will go after the religion of wokeism and Islamism all day. We'll also gladly go after these kind of Christian nationalists and Christian futurist types too that are making our fight for freedom of speech and freedom of religion and coexistence with our friends and allies a lot more difficult, unfortunately. And you have seen your fair share of these lunatics on the other side in this fight. I'm actually going to pull a boomer move, try to show off a screenshot here. Let me see. Here it is. Wanted to showcase this properly. Hopefully all of you can see this. I'll zoom in a little more. So these are just some examples of tweets that you made in November going after some of these people who are spamming your X account, trying to go after you for daring to defend Enlightenment values, classical liberalism, the very building blocks that made America and American secularism possible. And the weird thing is that a lot of these people that are going after you from the so-called intellectual angle, these people are Orthodox Christians. They'll call themselves mysticists. And I've just seen you get bulldozed by these guys. It's probably very irritating. I want to ask you from your angle, because you're also an intellectual giant against these people now in the fight. You know, where do these people come from? Who were some of the intellectual thought leaders of this kind of Christian nationalist or Christian futurist movement, maybe from the more academic intellectual side of things? And what can we do to fight back against this from an anti-woke atheist perspective?
Well, I mean, there are several different movements kind of operating in parallel there under kind of like this sort of motif of renewed Christian domination or whatever, which is not very Christian, frankly. I've actually, you said they're going to do a boomer move. I've adopted like a boomer Christian mentality with these guys. It's just, they're not Christians really. So like, whatever. That's more or less how I've decided to deal with these people. It's like, well, I read the gospel and they're not doing a very good job of representing it. And so they're probably not really Christians, even though they are professor. It's apparently really, really, really not okay to call somebody not Christian if they say
so they really don't like it when you say that.
But it's like, I also read where Jesus said, judge them by their fruits. And so it's like, okay, you're an asshole. So you're probably actually not one. You're not doing a great job there. But the thing is like there are a number of different movements. And honestly, I'm not all that super worried about the Orthodox thing. Like that's Orthodox people being Orthodox. The Orthodox branch of Christianity has a lot of superstition and kind of mystical elements woven into it. And it's like, I mean, they've been doing that for at least 1,200 years. I don't care that much. If they want to present that like it's some magical defense of communism, I just stare at them Bolshevik revolution and be like, are you kidding? The Bolsheviks literally turned the Orthodox into one of their tools. But okay, that's great. But there are a couple of other movements that are friendly-ish or co-belligerent-ish, and sometimes they are actually allied and sometimes they are at odds with one another, and to kind of very make them very simple. One is called integralism, which is based off of a Catholic doctrine called integralism, which seeks to reintegrate church and state. And they are by and large Catholic, though there is a Protestant integralism or an ecumenical integralism movement that's also occurring that kind of shares space with the Christian National Group.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it's the Catholic side of this, the kind of thought leaders, I suppose, would primarily be like in the intellectual domain. Patrick Deneen is kind of overwhelmingly the guy. Now Patrick is at Harvard, if I'm not mistaken, or Harvard educated, one or the other. And
Harvard,
stop hiring Harvard graduates. And so he has confirmed, in fact, that my interpretation of what they're about in terms of being American liberty and anti-constitution is correct. Not necessarily all of my criticisms. I'm not going to accuse him of being that expansive in crediting what I've said, but he has publicly said on Twitter that I in fact am correct about their anti-liberal, or in other words, tyrannical ambitions, and with that movement. And there are a number of Catholics, and then there are their friends in this kind of broader, more ecumenical, multi-faith kind of approach, where they want to see something that takes the shape, I think the German for this is a Reich, where they want something that takes the shape of a magisterium, a church magisterium integrated with the state, that defines the parameters of acceptable morality, acceptable belief and unbelief, and so on, and enforces that with civil authority in addition to ecclesial authority at the same time. Now, the Christian nationalist movement is not that necessarily. Christian nationalism is extraordinarily Protestant. That's veers very Catholic. They have a little crossover. That crossover had something to do with I don't consider them necessarily to be thought leaders. Maybe they do. I don't know. But there's a couple of guys, Matt Peterson, who works at the Blaze. He's a Catholic. And Nathaniel Fisher, or Nate Fisher, he's a Protestant. They both live there in Dallas. They've been working together for a number of years. So there's a little crossover there.
I see it as mostly Catholic, based on my observations.
The integralist stuff is primarily Catholic, because it's a Catholic doctrine. And in fact, it's not real popular with Protestants, which is why it's kind of funny that a lot of the people in the kind of Christian nationalist broader circles have picked up in integralist themes, or even there are some articles out there, unless they took them down. They're good at, like a very forthright, honest movement that believes in not bearing false witness. They tend to take their articles down when they get called out. They tend to delete articles, like the World Economic Forum deletes articles. So you can tell a very honest movement. But you have in the Christian nationalist side, probably the kind of landmark books. There are two that are about Christian nationalism. One is written by Stephen Wolfe. It's called The Case for Christian Nationalism. It's much more famous. 475 pages of what I'm assured is terrible theology, pretending not to be theology, pretending to be just a civic thing that veers kind of all over the place. I've listened to Stephen talk in person and listened to him present his case, and his case, at least when I've heard him speak, was backpedaling from the more extreme things he says in the book kind of constantly. Some of those are, in fact, that he would love to see atheists punished, or driven out of society. So this is a bit of a problem. That's not just things he said on podcasts, it's in the book. And so it's like,
so much for the grand battle of ideas and agree to disagree, and the woke is a big problem and all that.
Well, that's the thing, though, is because in the book, what he says is that he's actually not necessarily super serious about everything. He's just throwing a bunch of ideas out there. So he has no real commitment to anything, so he can back off of it, because that's, the way that you make a principled case and stand for something. And I'm pretty disheartened with that. He also has this whole discussion about how there should actually be a civil magisterium, and it should in fact be headed by this kind of highest office of governance, which is the Christian Prince. And the Christian Prince is literally the avatar of Jesus or God on earth. And he will be found due to his like extraordinary virtue or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so this is the attempt to institute something theocratic, though not necessarily a full-blown theocracy, but it also varies pretty widely. There are a lot of people who have much softer interpretations, like that they want to see more civic involvement from Christians. They want to see a cultural transition back to a stronger Christian ethic and moral foundation, instead of kind of not necessarily even firm beliefs, but vague beliefs. Like, okay, But the other book is by two guys, Andrew Torba and Andrew Isker, and it's carries Christian nationalism in the title. I don't remember the full title off the top of my head. Andrew Torba is the CEO of Gab. He makes very spicy comments on the internet about the they that I don't mean. And
yeah, I don't think he's the biggest fan of us.
he's not the biggest fan of you. He's also not the biggest fan of Jewish people, but he knows how to play that game really, really well on social media. So he can just kind of skate by and pretend that's not quite what he's saying, but you know what he's saying. And so, there's kind of thought leadership there. Andrew Isker is his co-author. There are a couple other people that have put out different ideas. There's, in particular, to talk about the ideas more than the people. There's this thing that they call the Benedict Option, which is we've already lost, so we're going to do like, I think Saint Benedict. Maybe I've got the wrong Benedict. Eggs Benedict or something, I don't know. And we're gonna huddle up and preserve culture to get through the storm, and those will be the people in like kind of Christian underground enclaves that will bring culture back after the Dark Age. And then
kind of like almost like a Christian jihad.
Well, no. That's the next level. This is like this is more like we lost and we're gonna go hide underground and be the carriers of the culture. It's kind of like the Zion in the Matrix, and like that's them or whatever. And I don't know if the rave part happens or not, but the other version of this is sometimes called the Boniface option, which refers to this guy Boniface who went and there was some pagan tree and he chopped it down. So he's obviously a badass, and like he called out the pagans and blah blah blah. And so they're the ones that are going to go like knock down idols and smash everything, and it's time for like all his wood chippers and all these cool badass things, but all these details are actually stupid. What you need to do, whether it's as atheists, whether it's more important for Christians, atheists for liberty, atheists are safe. You can mark safe from Christian nationalism right now, because the point of Christian nationalism isn't to win, it's an op. And so Christians are the ones who are going to get totally hosed by Christian nationalism. They'd be like, James hates Christians. That's like their favorite thing to accuse me of, because I go after them. And we'll talk about that, because it's the same game they play, that the woke play. No, actually,
they do it to us all the time.
Yeah, the thing is I don't hate Christians. Christians are the ones that are going to get caught in the dragnet. And there are multiple documents that are held by the federal government that insist, not even insinuate, very clearly insist that the actual cause of January 6th was in fact Christian nationalism, and that if we don't clamp down on religious belief and religious practice and of public officials and of churches, then we're going to see another gigantic insurrection. And then you have, Rob Reiner making a film about it. And then you have James Carville showing up in every show they'll let him and saying that Christian nationalism is the huge threat because
they'll lump the whole right and just call that Christian nationalism.
That's right. And in these documents, their definition, if you think that's confusing how many different definitions there are, is it the Andrew Torba definition? Is it the Andrew Isker? Is it the Boniface? Is it the Stephen Wolfe? Is it this really kind of soft pastory thing where it's like, we just want more Christian representation? Like, what is Christian nationalism? If you think it's vague and complicated on the Christian nationalist side, you should see the federal government. If you were to give a prayer and say, Lord, bless this food to my body and bless this nation in Jesus' name, they'd be like, whoop, Christian nationalist right there, because you bless the nation in the name of Jesus. That's Christian. Like they're that expansive in these documents, one of which was commissioned and came from inside the churches. Granted, it's wokies in the churches that commissioned it, but it doesn't matter. It came from inside the house. And so, again, I wonder, how are these people? They can't clean up their denominations. How in the hell are they going to clean up the nation if they were to win? But the point isn't for them to win. It's an op. The point is to create a gigantic dragnet, wait for some act of extremism, which hopefully we can prevent from happening. Like we saw no violence against drag queens, thank goodness. But maybe they get some act of violence. The next thing you know, Christian nationalism was the cause, the whole insurrection, blah, blah, blah. What you see with J6th, you can guess based on the kind of documentaries that they're making and the material they're putting out. By the way, the imagery from the trailer of that documentary Rob Reiner promoted that he's making, it's the same imagery, the exact same images that are in the documents that the House Select Committee has. And so, there's some real concerning reasons to believe that maybe this thing is actually a setup. And it's actually meant to wait until something bad happens and then to lump a whole lot of conservative Christian people in with a very broad brush. And
Yeah.
so when you argue
Like
about the
boomer, like that
details of
somehow
it,
boomer Christians are the same as the Groypers when they're not.
well, exactly right. Exactly right. And that's their goal, is to through insinuation and association and lies and manipulation, to what they're trying to do is they're trying to scare Joe Average, the normie out there in society, into believing there's a gigantic terrorist problem with Christians. And then they're going to use that to pull gigantic power. I mean, we can make guesses as to what they're going to do with it by reading literally the documents that give the plans of what they think should be done with it. But when you discuss the details of the issue, what you're actually doing is adding legitimacy to the subject, when the subject is a prop for an operation, and the operation is a sting operation to nullify the power of conservative Christians and religious liberty in the country. And atheists, maybe you have that attitude that you want to like snicker about Christians losing some of, getting stung by the government, but the loss of religious liberty for anybody is going to work out real bad for atheists real fast.
Like we're very much still in favor of freedom from religion. We are staunch secularists. We will fight for that tooth and nail. But I always tell people we need to be consistent and not only care about freedom from religion, but freedom of religion as well. You take away any religious person's freedom to speak freely in this country and not be able to simply express their beliefs in any capacity, even in their churches, as an individual person. That's going to affect us, and that's going to affect us really, really, really badly. So we need to be consistent in that. If we really are atheists for liberty, we need to show that.
And as for the idea that like I or you guys are attacking Christians in this by pointing out that this seems very fishy, for example, or that it's not constructed in a way that's likely to be able to win, short of some kind of weird force argument. In other words, protecting Christians, they say, oh, you're attacking Christians. Well, no, I'm attacking a person who has claimed to be a Christian, which is not identical to attacking Christians.
Right.
I'm attacking an ideological subset of people who identify as Christians, but that's not the same as attacking Christians writ large. You see this exact same behavior in other places. If you say it, try it out later. Find a feminist who's, well, let's be real, bitching online, and then quote tweet her and say, feminists always say blah, 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 and then say something really rude about feminists. And what they'll say is, oh, Thomas Sheedy says that all women are hags. And it's like, no, you said feminists are hags, but they transformed feminist into women. The Christian nationalists are doing the exact same thing. Say these Christian nationalist guys are acting the fool. They're not being legitimate. They're being a problem. They're bearing false witness. They're acting like jerks, whatever. And they'll say, James hates Christians. No, I just don't like you. It's a very, very different thing. And everything that I do in my professional and personal life reflects the fact that I extend a tremendous amount of care and concern and respect for Christians, in the same way that I extend care and concern and respect for women, in the same way that I extend care and concern and respect for racial minorities. If I don't want to say Black Lives Matter, I'm not attacking Black people, y'all. It's the same exact trick. Oh, I go after Kimberly Crenshaw and say, Kimberly Crenshaw, you're a liar and you're a communist. Oh, he's attacking Black people. No, Kimberly is a communist who happens to be Black. She is a communist of color, and I'm attacking a communist. And it has nothing to do with it. But this idea that you can become the official spokesperson of a class, and then if criticized, say, oh, no, he's attacking the whole class. James said the groomer thing, so he's attacking LGBTQ people. No, just the Q, actually. Frankly, just the Q. I'm only attacking the queer manipulators, and very specifically, and with tremendous accuracy and precision into what I'm actually saying. And so this idea that you can hide behind the class and suddenly become the true spokesperson of the class is it's frankly I don't want to say the D word because they'll make fun of me again, but it's a dialectical manipulation. You are mixing a lie and a truth together. Yes, James said a criticism of a Christian, but he didn't criticize Christians for being Christian. He criticized a Christian. So what you've done is you've taken a truth, he criticized a Christian, and blended it with a lie, he criticizes Christians, and made it look like I've criticized a class for the act of being a class. This is the exact same trick the woke play. This is the exact same trick the Islamists play. You criticize something to do with intifada or jihad, and the next thing you know, Islamophobia. He hates Muslims.
Yep.
Oh, no, actually, I really don't. I frankly don't give a shit. I'm really too busy not giving a shit, but I don't like that behavior right there. And I don't like the people who are in an organization promoting that behavior. And I will call that out.
Because
But
it only divides us further when, just we
Yes.
were talking about early in the stream, we're making so many great strides to protect Western civilization in all these other ways. You have these people that just get involved to where we have to then devote our own resources, devote our own time into basically a two-front war.
Right. And so here's the part where it gets really frustrating for people like an Atheist for Liberty, right? Because we're on the same side, right? And they're like, no, communism is atheist. So obviously you guys are actually communists. I get called that all the time, that I'm actually communist because I'm atheist. So let's just, if you will indulge me a minute, let's read from Karl Marx about atheism and communism. This is Karl Marx. He says, communism begins from the outset with atheism, but atheism is at first far from being communism. Indeed, atheism is still mostly an abstraction. The philanthropy of atheism is therefore at first only philosophical, abstract philanthropy, and that of communism is at once real and directly bent on action. So what he's saying is all communists are atheists, which I don't think is true. They're Gnostics. All communists are atheists, but not all atheists are communists. Karl Marx himself said that, made it very clear. In fact, what he was doing was calling people out and saying, oh, you think you're an atheist, but you're not a communist. You're not good enough. You're not one of us. In fact, you haven't adopted the Gnostic perspective that actually undoes your atheism. But at any rate, this is a very common thing because you said they alienate the crap out of people who are fighting the same fight. They're like, anytime I start to get a little warm to paying attention to Christian thought, they are very fast to appear to make sure I stay fully alienated. So they don't want me to be a Christian, clearly, which seems like weird for an evangelical perspective. But at the same time, they alienate people who are on their side, and they leave us wondering, do we go like full 2013 Reddit like all over again? Like, what do we do now?
We've had to do it for a few things now, but I love making allies still. I love agreeing to disagree. If we're in a certain fight or a certain battle, let's say the fight's against wokeism, I will team up with a Michael O'Fallon. I will team up with a Christian in order to combat this religious dogma that wants to instill itself on all of civilization. I'll do that. We're not going to be soft on our secularism. We're not going to be soft on our atheism, but this is where we will still act in good faith and be in this IDW agree to disagree mode. I'll still operate in 2020 terms as long as those people will operate with the same respect to me.
This is why I discount these people as being actually Christian whatsoever. I mean, the comparison that I see, this happens every time. Like if I get invited a lot to speak at the Turning Point Pastor Summits, right? The TPUSA Faith Pastor Summits, which boy, oh boy, do these people, there have been 3 of them. Guess how many James has spoken at? If you guessed 3, you are correct. And I literally, like, I don't keep that many things from my conferences, like right over here on my bookcase. I don't, it's in like a little bit of a pile. I got to organize some stuff, or I'd show you. I actually have the name badges that they gave me at the TPUSA Faith, because I think it's a significant thing. Like this is something that's happening that is different and new and might make a big dent in an important sector of our society. And so I'm proud to have taken part in that. And these people throw a bellyache, they cry, they yell, they call names, they call, whether it's Charlie Kirk or his pastor or his other pastor or whoever, to try to get them to kick me out. The board has to endure just tremendous amounts of people being awfully ugly for Christians. And then, so it's this really negative, awful environment. And 3 out of 3 times I've almost not gone. Like the weeks leading up to it, I get treated so badly. It's like, you know what?
Yeah.
And then I get there and it's night and day different. So it's like there are Christians and then there are Christians. And like Charlie goes to bat for me every time. Charlie and I have got to be great friends. Charlie and his pastor got to be great friends. Rob McCoy, I'm friends with Rob McCoy's son, Mike. Like we have these great freaking relationships. And the religion thing isn't necessarily an impediment, but then what I get online is that it's supposed to be from people
Yeah.
who allegedly want me to come to faith. They lie and tell me they're praying for me or something. Like, why be divisive like this? It's not necessary. It's not helpful. I have no desire for you to not be Christian. I don't ever actually, you guys might argue with them. I don't argue with them. I don't want people are like, well, when we win, we can debate faith. Like, no, I'm not going to. We're going to be friends or we're not. I'm not
Yeah,
going to.
we'll do it.
You
but
can.
but
I'm
it's like
done. I
when we're in a
retired.
certain fight,
I
we'll
have
agree
no
on the
desire to
things we
debate
agree
faith
on.
anymore.
They're people. These people are allies for a reason. If they were more than that, they just be us. So I think it's important to make that distinction. We'll operate with these people and have respect for them and agree to disagree when we can. And sure, people want to debate, we'll debate. We won't hold punches anymore. But there's a time and a place. There's a time and a place for everything. And so when we're at a turning point, when we're at a place like CPAC or something like that, we're there to make friends. And as long as we're treated with respect and kind, then we'll do the same. We'll do the same for them. Yeah, I'm with you also on America Fest. Like, I love that you're getting a lot of respect and compliments from the organizers of Turning Point, from Charlie Kirk and stuff like that. I don't want to get into this really too much. Did you see the video of Rob Smith being harassed out of a restaurant by Groypers, essentially, like a mob and wave of Groypers for simply, I think he was either having an event or something around America Fest, like one of the neighboring bars or something like that. Do you think that basically, because you're very famous and very well known, you've seen the amazing power of all these people treating me with respect at the upper levels, but do you worry that maybe there are certain sectors of the lower tiers of volunteers or attendees, some of the people that are more than willing to do what they can in the surrounding area to make time for the atheists or time for anti-woke heterodox people, difficult?
Well, I can speak. I can't speak for Turning Point as an organization, but I will
Sure.
point out that if this was in fact Groypers, I did sort of see this. Like, I was there in my hotel room. It was late. I had a very, very long day. I kind of saw it. I didn't turn the sound on. I kind of rolled my eyes. I immediately assumed it was kind of Groyper adjacent people, but I don't know if it was or not. I didn't dig
Mhm.
into it. Some people, there was a little scuttlebutt about it the next day, but it wasn't like, at least where I was, a major topic of
Sure.
conversation. Um, the Groypers have harassed me at these events repeatedly. So, like, even as a famous person, like, yeah, I see the amazing side, but I see this too. I don't think it's anybody's business to, I mean, you do have to worry somewhat. This is what I was going to say about not speaking for Turning Point, but
Right.
about attendees. But they actually have, Turning Point USA has taken steps. A lot of people don't know this. They've taken steps to minimize that. For example, formally speaking, the Groypers are not supposed to be allowed at Turning Point events, and they were very quick and very proactive in shutting that out. These provocateurs, and as a response, typically the Groypers either come anyway and pretend not to be, or they come and just be in the neighborhood and cause problems. I don't know, like, it's impossible. I think of it just running an organization where I don't really have even hardly any employees. It's impossible, like, if you put on an event, to be completely accountable to how everybody that shows
Everybody
up,
around there. Yeah.
behaves. But Turning Point has been extremely good about those particular issues, very consistently, throughout its history. So, and I'm privy to know that's kind of the case. So I will speak for it like a little bit that way. Not that I'm in no way, just to disclaim, I'm in no way affiliated with Turning Point officially or
Sure.
anything like that. But that was a pretty sad thing that happened. Frankly, it's kind of it leaves a black eye on the thing, just because it got a lot of attention, even if it was some totally tangential thing, or even provocateurs that were making their way in. You find this, by the way, with virtually everything. I can't imagine running something as big as that and not having infiltrators, like, drive me absolutely crazy. I would lose my marbles, because infiltrators try to show up and do provocations and cause problems and get them on video and make the organization look bad. They're kind of in an invincible situation. The Groyper branding, if that's who it was, couldn't possibly be worse, and as it is, and so they look, quote unquote, based in their kind of fake based way to their platform or to their audience. Meanwhile, everybody else already doesn't like them, so it's no loss. And then they get to damage the organization, or take somebody like Rob Smith and maybe put a black eye on his relationship. Now he's got to go do, stuff. So now all of a sudden, Charlie or somebody in the Turning Point team is having to waste resources to deal with this fact, to like make nice for something that obviously they had no responsibility for. So it's just like it's a win-win keck fest for the provocateurs. You see that I think that's a large part of what the Christian nationalist people are doing, largely online. They were there kind of in force at America Fest this year too. And of course it's their right to show up to an event if they want, who cares? But this is the problem with infiltrators and subverters. And I mean, we saw that with the atheist movement years ago with the woke, the atheism plus crowd.
Like the reverse is starting to happen now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the same. It's the same thing. Like these extremists on all sides, they're not interested in, like growing their own thing for the quality of their product. What they're actually interested in doing is like trolling around the edges and damaging the thing that they're envious of. That's what woke was. That's what Atheism Plus did at every atheist conference in the universe, was like try to get the famous big name person knocked down so that they could stick up some damn feminist on a panel nobody wanted to listen to, and then accuse everybody of something anyway. So nobody wanted to go. It's the same kind of a vibe. I forgot, luckily, I guess, and took pictures with a lot of people and fans and met a lot of people this year at America Fest, like I usually do. And I actually set aside time to go do that. But the one over the summer, the Action Fest or ActCon they had in West Palm.
SAS, the Student Action Summit.
Yeah, I got swamped with freaking groypers. It was really bad. Like I had so many groypers pull bullshit with me, and it was really, really bad. So where I was like, I'm just not going to go interact in public. So they achieve a win because I forgot about it, so I didn't do it. But I left in July. I came home saying I'm not going to interact in public when I go to America Fest this year. I'm just going to stay. I'm going to lay low. I'm going to hide in my room. I'm going to go quietly to restaurants off site when I'm not obligated to be there for something. And luckily I forgot, but that's a net loss for their event. And that's just because these infiltrators. So infiltrators and interlopers do this. And I did see that happened. And I think it sucks. I hope that is the explanation. It'd be sad, in my opinion, if it's like, because most of the Turning Point kids I've met are good kids. Right. Most of the Groyper kids I've met are little assholes. So it cuts pretty clearly.
We just had to make a soundbite, like a really good soundbite, just a meme of that. I think just those last 6 seconds, I think, would be just fantastic.
Do what you got to do.
I actually share this very similar view. I was a part of a Turning Point USA chapter when I was in college years ago. I loved the big tent view that Turning Point had in years past. Like there were clips of Charlie Kirk actually saying he would listen while he's driving to Christopher Hitchens and Sam Harris. Not that I agree with every view that Sam Harris has. I agree with him on a lot, and I'm starting to agree with him on some more stuff that he said a decade ago. But the fact that statements like that are said from Turning Point, it made me more interested in Turning Point as a new atheist. I don't like everything they do. We had a few shows on the stream where I have criticized Charlie a few times, criticized the direction the Turning Point is going in, but I'll be very clear and I'll make a good statement. We sponsored the Student Action Summit in 2020. I would not be opposed to us doing that in the future if anybody from Turning Point, or Charlie, if you're seeing this, or anybody wants to work with us to still have this kind of big tent mission on where we obviously have our disagreements, but if our objective is defeating wokeism, if our objective is defeating Islamism, if our objective is defeating some of the same enemies that both organizations have, we would be most certainly willing to kind of agree to disagree and debate it out. Charlie originally wanted me to go on a show a few years ago to debate him. He had a different view on how he wanted to debate me compared to when he had you and Peter on a few years ago. But still, as another executive, I would be more than willing to still have that agree to disagree mantra of what the IDW was all about. So, Charlie, if you ever want to send us that email, We wouldn't be opposed. So want to get to one last question. Already it's 9:15 Eastern. We've been going for an hour and 15 minutes. If you don't mind, let's we'll go for another 20. I'll ask you one question, and we'll do some Q&A. But already it's starting to pile in. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been a fantastic stream, a great end of the year, right? Really means a lot, guys. So James, this is where like the softball question really does come in now. Wanted to ask, it's the end of the year, a very based end of the year. I think we've made a lot of great strides in our fight, like we were talking about earlier. Have you thought about any New Year's resolutions? What are some big things in James's personal life or James's professional life, either or, that you think you want to achieve and really set as a main marker for your success come January?
I'm going to fight less on Twitter.
Oh, no.
I'm not going to do that. Ha ha.
No, bad. No, fight more.
Fight more. No, actually, I've been since right before Thanksgiving, I've been pretty serious about cleaning up my diet. And I've actually, my resolution from last year, believe it or not, I noticed, so we'll go backwards in time a little over a year. And I did a conference in a church in Arizona in like the 11th of December, 2022. And somebody took a great picture of me, like in a panel with a microphone. And I'm like, looking all based, man spreading and like pointing at the world or whatever I'm doing. I'm furious or whatever. I'm on a tear. And I looked at that picture and I was like, I am sitting strongly. My belly is sitting way more strongly. And I decided that my New Year's resolution last year was I am going to exercise virtually every day. And short of whether being sick, sometimes with the travel, it's very difficult. But I have actually kept that. Like I went outside last year in the winter, rain, snow, didn't matter, outside hour and a half to 2 hours every day, did my stupid minimum 10,000 steps on top of like some kind of a workout. And I have actually maintained this activity for an entire year. Well, right before Thanksgiving, my wife and I turned the next corner and we have really cleaned up our diet as an experiment anyway. And it has been really, really profoundly transformational. So I'm going to stick to that as long as I can, being pretty not obnoxious, but serious about eating well and not being kind of a garbage disposal, I think is really one of the ones as far as personal stuff goes. Professionally, I have been taking it easier because my travel has been so overwhelming. And that looks like it's likely to be the case in the coming year. But I'm going to try to also set aside time to write much more seriously. I haven't done a lot of serious writing in a long time.
Well, if you do that and it turns into a book, let us know. I'd love to. I
have a book, but I didn't write it myself mostly. That's coming up pretty soon. So keep your eyes open for that. And probably sometime near the end of the first quarter, I'm hoping my guys are like, every time I say this, I ambitiously am hoping for a February release, but it might be March. But the book is called The Queering of the American Child, and it breaks down queer theory in education. And I didn't write it, so it's eminently readable and very easy for people to access. And I've had a little bit of pre-reader feedback, and everybody's been really positive about how easy it is to read and interesting and engaging, and that it's a page turner. I hear that a lot. So I think it's going to be a big help for parents out in the world to understand what's gone on in the schools and what queer theory is and how it's relevant to their kids' education. So I do have one coming, but I'm sort of literally like partway through like 3 others that I just kind of abandoned. And so maybe it's time to try to pick the torch back up and finish those. I want to be more diligent with the writing on a professional level, though, to answer that question.
Mm-hmm. The weather's getting cold, during those days where you're not traveling, might as well make more use of your time. You got to keep the fighting going, though. Okay. So
yeah, that was a joke. Don't worry.
Fighting, and then the other half of the day writing.
No, it's actually the diet. I'm one of these guys now. I'm like basically eating meat all the time. So I got all this extra aggression. I have to go fight with people all the time.
The Jordan Peterson carnivore diet.
Way too strict for me, but yeah, I'm adjacent to that, I guess is the word. But and it's a joke. I'm not actually more aggressive. I'm way more like stoic in a sense. It's really interesting. Beef is good. Beef is a superfood.
That's another soundbite that we got to clip. Beef is good.
Yeah.
For all the editors on the comms team, you're looking at this later. Get to work. But James, I appreciate that. We'll get into Q&A now with everybody watching. Again, thank you everybody for tuning on in. We'll make another little announcement. So speaking of more social media platforms, are you on Facebook? You still have a Facebook account? Well, we have a page on Facebook, so be sure to like us and follow us on facebook.com/atheistliberty. Turn on notifications for that as well. And if you're watching us on YouTube, again, just subscribe. It takes 2 seconds. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like the video. It takes 2 seconds. It betters the algorithm. YouTube will then say to, its people, the magical YouTube algorithm will say, we want to see more of this. Imagine, a woke platform spreading our content around. That's kind of a good thing. And each of you can do that for just 1 second's worth of your time. Really means a lot. And again, join AFL too. We want to have you in network. You get into the Discord. We'll connect you with the state director. We're starting to do more events in person on the ground. We go to conferences throughout the country. We're doing so many amazing things. More details to come on all of that. So let's get into showcasing some comments and questions here. We got our first comment. Is this where the based atheists go? Yes. Yes, this is where the base atheists go. This is where James goes, okay? The one atheist organization that he continues to support. It's us. It's only us. So thank you so much. What was it? I don't think James knows how much he's pushed national level politics since 2018. He's a beast. Yeah. James, you have just been growing more and more and more. This is why I always call you the expert on these topics.
Well, I hope so. As I always say to statements like that, I'm trying.
We got Jenny saying that she's seeing displeasure with wokeness even amongst her Democratic and liberal friends. I actually like this. It's starting to not seem like a right-wing thing anymore.
I'm hearing it too, actually. Not that I have a whole lot of those left that'll talk to me, but I do hear it. I'll hear them say stuff like they're kind of on board with, they want to treat people nice and all this crap, but like the sex stuff goes like really too far, or something will blow up and they'll be like, really, do we have to call everybody racist? Like, really, that's where you have to go with it. It's like there's this eye roll that's becoming more and more common. And what I'm hearing also is a lot of people kind of pretending that they weren't really into it when they were way more into it than they're letting on now. So yeah, it's a good sign.
We got TJ, Texas State Director for AFL, saying that the ideological capture of our once great universities seems well and truly complete after the infiltration of Columbia all those years ago. Sad. Love how he has sad at the end. Like,
yeah, sad. Many such cases.
Sad.
The universities are, I don't know if they're the worst. I don't know if they or K through 12 is the worst, but everything education, if we just lump it all together as education is the most infected institution, to the point where it's not at all clear to me that any of it's recoverable without some kind of a major kind of like ground clearing. I think, like I said, that they're only going to be able to be recovered by tucking their tail and coming at the very edge of their own obsolescence, because they've just been this way and they've gone too far. But the incentives are all still wrong all the way across, especially in the university system. We have some states that are trying to make some bids on that. Oklahoma, notably, just actually Kevin Stitt did a executive order against DEI that hits their university system particularly hard. I was kind of involved in helping that come to be, so I'm pretty proud of that having happened last month. But I guess it was this month. It was like the 12th or 13th this month. It was just a couple of weeks ago. So that's good news.
I was literally just writing down another idea based on some of the stuff that was being said there. I learn new things just by the people writing comments. We got Frank Treza. He runs our IT department at AFL. Frank says, I needed to take a class on equity and inclusion to get an InfoSec degree at a community college. Yeah, it's affecting community colleges too. It's not Harvard. It's not just Columbia. It's not this whole nonsense at Yale with the nurse costumes. It's the meme of it has died. I think people are waking up to understanding that this is not a joke anymore.
Yeah, it's in everything. It's in the hard sciences. It's in the soft sciences. It's in the humanities. It's in stuff that has nothing to do with anything. I just was sent some documents about the level to which it's in police training, which has nothing to do with colleges at all. And it's pretty horrifying. Everything starts with the magic new values, the new religious values of equity and inclusion.
We got Liberty Dragon saying, and I believe that we're talking about wokeism, wokeism dying. What will accelerate it will be economic collapse. Corporations are not going to tolerate woke stuff when they are losing billions in revenue.
Well, I believe in the first half of that, but I don't agree with the second half because they are perfectly content, as Disney and Bud Light and some other companies showed, to lose lots of revenue because the way they're being propped up is otherwise. In fact, I strongly suspect that the governments are so corrupt at this point that they will just print money and bail them out, and let us eat the inflation, because that's kind of their MO lately. So economic collapse will actually turn the public tide against it tremendously, and people who have to actually do things will definitely not have time or interest for this or patience for it. But what you'll find is that the big corporations, they're operating in a separate economy. It's an economy that's defined on ESG, cartel rules. And so what's most important is actually to maintain good standing with the cartel. So whatever the cartel tells you to do is what you're going to do. And if it means you're going to lose $50 billion like Disney or whatever, it's what you're going to do because you've got some bigger promise hiding on the other side of the cartel, or bigger carrot and bigger stick probably. So yeah, I'm not so optimistic's not the right word. Maybe prosaic is the right word about this, is that I actually literally think that what we're dealing with is a gigantic financial cartel operating in the tune of over $10 trillion that can carry corporations a very long way through this transition. And the ones who prove the most loyalty will be the new oligarchs on the other side. And the ones who show any disloyalty or that they blink or in this process are going to get thrown in the ditch. And we've got to break the cartel. So the normal logic doesn't apply because I don't think that the normal market forces apply in that domain anymore.
Yeah, agreed. People are operating more out of fear than out of profit.
I mean, that only lasts for so long. So, the reply to us, of course, would be that, well, eventually you run out of other people's money, which is 100% correct. Even if you can print it, you eventually hit an economic calamity that you can't continue to print your way out of meaningfully. But I don't think that they're gonna blink. I think that they're gonna hold right on, right up to the bitter end, even if it destroys everything, unless we start to expose the cartel and put them in a position where if they sing, they get in less trouble and somebody above them gets in more trouble, which is the traditional way of busting a cartel. But I don't think that we have a normal economy or a normal market. And so when people propose market-based solutions, I don't believe in those. I think we're going to need criminal law. Criminal law is going to have to apply, and heavy-duty lawsuits, class action lawsuits, in tremendous amounts of money for violations of fiduciary responsibility, for grand theft of education. Whatever the hell's going on in medicine, oh my God, especially with the trans thing, it's going to be a monster.
Yeah, that's another debate I realized that we should have on the channel too, a market versus government-based solutions on how to deal with wokeism debate.
Well, we need to get the market back is what we actually have to do, and then the market solves the problems. But we've got to open the market back up, which means we have to get it out from under the wing of a cartel first.
I think we got to have you on more often to talk about this. We got Rochelle from Moral Government asking, how do you think the baby bust that started in 2008 will affect the universities when the class of 2026 and on will be smaller than the last?
Well, anything that hurts enrollment is going to hurt them because they are increasingly financially dependent on people coming and paying large amounts of tuition. In fact, I think that that's part of why the universities are as corrupt as they are. It's not just ideological capture. I actually think that this whole ESG thing is heavy on them as well. I don't know what the sets of incentives are or how they work or the threats, carrots and sticks both. But what I do know is that most universities are massively in bad shape financially with mortgage debt for all of the student services and dorms and administration and all the stuff that they've brought in over the past couple of decades, new fitness centers and things. These things are like multi-million-dollar facilities, so they have major financial issues. They're very, very dependent upon controlling that mortgage, the interest rates, which I bet has to do with their keeping their ESG score up and being DEI revolutionary universities. And if they to do that, they have to hire more and more administration, and that administration is expensive. These are, I think, at a minimum, once you add in benefits, $250,000 a year jobs. You have a few hundred of them per university. I mean, it's a gigantic grift. It's the biggest grift in the universe, and but that puts the universities, therefore, are actually in the story from 100 and some odd years ago of the company town, where I don't know if you know what a company town is, Thomas, but back in the robber baron days, you'd have like the big factory in town, whatever, the Standard Oil or whatever factory happened to be. Well, they owned all of the single housing units, and you would rent from the company. They owned the store, and you would buy all of your stuff, groceries and otherwise, from the company store. Right. And they would rig it up so that your wages and your rent and the cost of your food and all of the different goods and services you might need would make it so that you come out net negative just a little bit every month, or even significantly. And so you were literally, like, when you hear the phrase wage slavery, you were literally in wage slavery, because you would come out net negative. So you actually owed the company money. So you couldn't quit your job. You couldn't leave. You couldn't go anywhere. You were actually in debt to the company you worked for, which also was the owner of everything you had, whether it was houses, whether your house or your stuff or whatever. And that's the company town model. Well, the universities have become company towns in this regard. They have enormous amounts of mortgage debt. To manage the interest on the mortgage debt, they have to hire administrators that are extremely expensive. That means that they become insanely dependent on getting that federal student loan money to pour in through the doors. And the federal student loan money then comes with massive strings from the federal government in terms of what they have to do in order to qualify for it. And the universities are being, even if they're not, I mean, they're ideologically out of their minds at the same time, but even if they weren't, the puppet strings are completely tied around them. They're in the company town. They have no way out. No way out. And so when you see anything that's something like this, a baby bust that's going to lead to a collapse in enrollment, their only option is going to be to ratchet up tuition even higher. And so right now, what you already have, so it's class of 2028 or whatever you said, what you have right now, I mean, that's right around the corner. That's not, if it was class of 2028, that means people entering college like next year. And so what you have then is a large population of people wanting to go to college, or who would go to college, I should say, college age population, who is less inclined to go than any generation in a long time. You're seeing employers now openly saying, maybe we're not going to hire college graduates as much. So the incentives to go are falling apart. And meanwhile, the university's caught in a position where its only alternative is to raise the price for something. So demand is falling, and they're going to have to raise the price. Like, that's what we call a death spiral, my friends.
Speaking of plans and ops, we got Kevin saying Christian nationalism is a 100,000% op. Started the trend.
10,000%. That's I say 10,000% every time because it's a quote. I'm quoting somebody from that, so I have to say the quote exactly right every time. I could pull some bullshit and it's cute, like it's 100 squared. It's like, but no, it's 10,000% an op.
We'll do a few more questions and then we'll head off for the night. But man, they just keep piling up. We have a super chat from Mark Thomas saying, thoughts on the radicalization of the left this year over Palestine issues. What are James's thoughts, especially national security problem throughout the West?
Yeah, it's obviously a national security problem, especially in Europe and in England. I mean, I talked to a lot of people from England in the last month and a half. I was in England actually. I was actually in one of the protests in London. It had over 150,000
Yeah,
people.
you were walking like in the complete opposite direction of the protesters, but you were seeing the insanity as you were going through the
Yeah,
crowd.
straight down the middle of the street, the opposite direction. They were in my way. I didn't give a shit. And so, yeah, well, it's a major problem there. To people I talked to from London are horrified. I mean, no, that's not the right word. Terrified. They think London may very well have fallen. That the UK may not have a way out of this. Certainly, we're seeing some major problems with it in Ireland, which is not part of the UK, of course, but all through Europe, we're seeing the strange death of Europe. You know, Douglas Murray wrote that
Douglas
book.
Murray's coming
But
into life.
in my
Yeah.
opinion, The Strange Death of Europe was actually written by Jean-Paul Sartre in the foreword to, or preface to, The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon, in the 1960s. And if you read it, it's literally what has happened. He called for it then as a letter to Europe, and it's happened, and it's a disaster. So that's I can't imagine the security threat there. What's happening in the U.S., I think, is a very significant issue from a position of national security, and that's even without invoking the border, which is, letting an obscene number of people, like basically a football stadium, across every single day. Uh, who knows how many sleeper cells from what origins are included in that? I've actually heard not just Chinese nationals, but Chinese special forces are among the people coming across the border. That can't be good. So that's significant, but that's the border. That's not this. What I see them doing is strategically pressure testing choke points in cities, subways, transportation venues, highways, and near airports. Which is a major national security threat. So if you had something major pop off, say like happened in 2020, all of a sudden again, they know how to, they're testing how to choke major arteries, transportation arteries, and how to get away with it. They're provoking to find out exactly how far they can get away with things with the police. They're terrorizing and destabilizing communities. Nobody's quite sure what to do about them, or what to do about it. And so it's a major issue. As for why do we see them radicalizing this way, if you've bothered to read leftist literature ever in your entire life, this isn't new. Like, they're writing about their unvarnished support for Palestine in the 70s. Like, of course they're on the Palestinians, or Palestine's not even real, side in this. Of course they're on Hamas's side. It's part of the global revolution, and they've been on the side against Israel explicitly as a project of the global left since this entire split was formed. I mean, I could go through the whole history of it and talk about the organization of the the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which was the original parent organization that became the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO. So it started off with the PFLP, which was literally, this isn't this, look it up anywhere you want, go ask anybody you want. I even debated a communist about this history when I was in England and when I was in London, and he's just straight up, yeah, that's true. It was, the PFLP was a creation of the Soviets specifically to create a wedge in the region. And the PFLP became the parent organization of PLO. What do you think the liberation part of Palestinian Liberation Organization, what do you think it stands for? And it's been in solidarity with all these leftist liberation things. What was Herbert Marcuse's most famous essay, or I guess the second most famous essay in the 60s, called Essay on Liberation? Do you think it's a different liberation? Let me give you a clue. It's not. It's the same liberation exactly. And that's why they use the same fist as the same symbol, which happens to be the one from the communists. And then Hamas actually spins off from a fusion of a splinter from the Muslim Brotherhood taking up PLO stuff, and the leftist literature. And I mean, this is a whole separate like 15-minute discussion about how deeply infused leftist and Marxist literature was in that region, that gave rise to this. And so that's why Judith Butler tried to walk it back now. So fairy godmother of queer theory, when the whole October 7th massacre blew up, takes no days at all for a video of Judith Butler to say, well, Palestine has always been a project of the global left. Of course, we're in solidarity with it. Why don't you read one single book by Angela Davis? They all are all about Palestine. She has an entire book about Palestine, as a matter of fact. So this isn't like a new thing. Of course, they took that side. It's just new that people are realizing, A, that that's a thing, and B, how many of our young people are like all in on this and believe that Jews are oppressors and that what's happening is a genocide of people that have a nation that doesn't even exist. And I saw a graph today. I think it was real. I didn't vet it, so maybe it's not. You see stuff on social media, you got to be careful. But it actually shows that the population of, I think, Gaza specifically has been, so it's a genocide that's been being waged by Israel. That's the claim, right? And that's why this is all justified. Allegedly, Israel's been doing a genocide of the poor Gazans, but their population has been steadily increasing every year since like whatever. Like, worst genocide ever. What kind of friggin' genocide sees the people that you're genociding increase in population? Like, it's so fake. But of course, the left just marries truth to lie. So it's like, what am I going to do? All I can do is shrug my shoulders. Of course, the left is behind this. And it's more that we're seeing something that's always been there and seeing the scope of a problem. But as far as a national security threat, I mean, we talked about some of those things, but it's also the creation of, I call this one the watermelon guard. Mao had his red guard. This one is green on the outside, red on the inside. So it's
a little
like,
tastier.
Yeah, this is the watermelon guard. The queer theory thing is the rainbow guard. They're just creating another youth, a revolutionary cadre out of a youth rebellion.
Who will go after you and destroy you the moment you say something that's not in their proper groupthink.
Yeah, it's not sticking very well, though. I think they thought they were going to be able to kind of do a Black Lives Matter on the population, and like we'd all be like, oh yeah, I'll post the fist or whatever. Oh no, don't mess with my business. But what's really happening is people are like kicking their asses at their so-called protests.
We got one more question that I want to showcase because, James, we've already kept you on for long enough. I really appreciate that. We got Kayla Saunders saying, how do you navigate right-of-center circles as an atheist without feeling forced to be dishonest or silent on the subject of religion in general and Christianity in particular?
I just tell people what I think, and then people disagree with me. And with lots of experience, you find ways that are pretty usually successful at keeping the peace or being funny to navigate the difference. But I don't hide anything, so I don't feel dishonest. I had some guy ask me at an event not that long ago. He said, did you find Jesus yet? And I was like, no. And then he was like, so are you like an evolutionist? And I was like, well, if you mean, do I believe that the biological theory of evolution is adequate to explain speciation? Yes. But if you mean more than that, probably not. And then he's like, so you're saying I'm related to an amoeba, and that's offensive to me. And I said, you'll get over it. And I don't give an inch. I don't start fights about it, though. If somebody tells me they're Christian, I'm just nice about it. If they tell me that they're praying for me, I understand the intent, and I thank them. Like, I'm praying protection for you and your family. I'm like, okay, well, I want that. Like, I want protection. So like, cool. I don't know if it works, but like, some people wear lucky socks. I don't care. Like, thank you. I know what you mean by it. I know what you're intending. And I try to speak to people's intent rather than, now a lot of people are like, it's a lot of, we'll convert you or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, probably not. And just as long as I don't, so where you feel like and I feel like this is kind of the spirit of the question, where you're selling your soul is when you lie or stay silent in order to get along. I don't ever do that. I just say what I think, and if people don't like it, then like that's fine. And they say, well, I don't like to hear that, and I say, you'll get over it, or something like that, or we'll make a joke or whatever. I try not to make things too confrontational because I just don't feel like it's that fruitful. There is a lot of stuff that's like that, but there's a lot of stuff where people aren't like that at all. I get more welcoming and supportive commentary, or people acknowledging that it's not, if they bring it up, that it's not something we need to focus on because it's not relevant to the moment. So I don't lie. I don't compromise on what I think, but I also just generally veer toward, like, it's not like there's this desire to like change the individual's mind a lot of times, but like that's 99% of the time a waste of time. And it's like you're not in a social interaction where that's the nature of why you're there. So I just try to stay, why am I here? Like, am I here to fight about whether or not, creation happened? No. At the end of this day, do I actually care if creation happened? No. There's communists trying to cut kids' dicks off. I don't care about that right now. And so it's just I don't put too much thought into it. It used to be important to me, but it's like on the scale of things, like it's really not that big of a deal. Like I really don't care. If you they try to take my religion. I mean, I told some guy, he was like, well, we'll bend your knee or whatever if you don't convert. And I was like, I'll bend yours backwards. And like I'm not gonna put up with like threats and stuff, but it's not a big deal.
I'm glad to hear that. And honestly, this is what I like about how big our advisory board is. We have certain advisors that do more of the standard atheism and secularism stuff. We have atheists that are very much in the anti-woke fight. We have a diverse board and a diverse membership for a reason. We're needed in multiple different places. We're fighting multiple different conflicts within the same culture war. And you are a massive part of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add that because I know that I'm going to spend a lot of time in those circles, I have done my homework. I have spent a lot of time making sure that I'm not going to misrepresent their beliefs or their arguments. And I want to be able to articulate from their perspective why they think something. Like, why do they think that you should be able to pray the gay away or whatever? Like, I'm not just like, I could just say that's wrong and stupid or whatever. But I want to know, like, well, from your perspective, how does this work? Why is that a thing? How could it work? Oh, well, because, the human form or the human state is fallen in sin or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So if you were to have a full redemption, then you're the sin that you're drawn to. But okay, I understand. And I want to like do genuine, like by approaching the religion more with curiosity than with antagonism. Like I'm learning stuff. I'm learning how people think. I'm learning it from their perspective. And even if I don't agree with it, I find just every time that people respect that. It's like how Americans get mad about everything because they're woke or whatever. But if you go to like China or Japan or something like that, and you try to speak Japanese or you try to speak Chinese or whatever, and you're not very good at it, they like literally appreciate what you're doing. It's like if you wear like Mexican get up, the Mexicans down at the barrio love you, even though the wokies are yelling at you. The only country that doesn't seem to work in is France. Not the barrio thing, but the language thing. Turns out that, trying to like, I really want to understand Christianity, and I spend time, I read the Bible, try to figure stuff out, try to come to understand it, try to represent what I'm saying honestly and from a perspective that resonates with my understanding of the theology. And because I give it respect, I get respect back.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I don't believe it's literally true, but I found it to be extraordinarily enriching. I don't go as far as Peterson by any stretch, but I do think that if we might borrow from a source that will make them very upset, I do think that the Bible is a very wisdomous book, and it's filled with like lots of insightful ways to understand perspectives and stories about community and about self and about sacrifice and its rewards and falling astray and coming back. I mean, there's just so many wonderful, like, I mean, I could do a little Bible sermon right now about like the people you in your life, you probably try to talk to these woke people, or maybe it's religious people or whatever, and they don't want to hear you or they don't want to listen. And Jesus said, shake the dust from your feet. So don't stay there and argue with them. Shake the dust from your feet. Was that Matthew 10, something like that?
I try to tell atheists all the time, read your Bible, open your Bible. That classic atheist movement talking point is still super duper valid. If we're actually trying to also debate these points and show why it's nonsense, it's kind of disrespectful if you don't even know the material and that you're going in there claiming something that you are not actually learning it is nonsense. Granted, you can call something out for being nonsense and not being extremely 1,000% educated on every detail, but boy, does it help. Boy, does it help to actually know the material.
It doesn't help to go in like guns blazing and be like, everything in this book is stupid because I don't believe in one particular ontological claim at the center of it. It's like, no, there's actually some really pretty sound stuff in there, and you might want to think about it. And it's really like, I found it extremely enriching to my thought. It's extremely clarifying to my thought. So because I give that respect and I do it intentionally and with effort, it shows. And so I don't feel like I have to compromise anything.
Mhm.
And so people say, well, why aren't you Christian? It's like, well, because I don't believe it's literally true. And it's funny because they don't actually kind of know what to do with that, except to
Yeah.
say, well, it is a leap of faith. And it's like, I know.
And I'm just not taking the leap. Thanks,
And
though.
if you want to read Hebrews with me, I can talk to you about that too. Um,
Yeah. But James, I appreciate it. This is a great discussion. Again, I said this to you earlier on the stream, and I also said this backstage with you. I couldn't think of a better guest to end the streams for the year on. Everybody, you're going to be seeing a different streaming series within the next 2 weeks when we come back in January. We'll be back on Tuesday, January 9th. Whole different setup, whole different outlook and look on everything. But it's thanks to people like you, James, and the other advisors and all of our other supporters that really makes this organization grow, and we're able to do what we do. You bring your followers in, all these other people bring their people in, and we build a new movement as a result of that. So I want to see this organization be a part of that anti-woke success come December of next year. I would like the atheist, agnostic, secularist piece to be in that puzzle too. So James, this is a great, amazing chat. Going to make some last minute announcements here, guys. For all of you that are watching from X, again, follow us on X. It takes 2 seconds. We're at Atheist Liberty. You can follow James. His link is in the description of the video below, and me as well. I'm at Sheedy Tom. You can follow me there too. Would love to have you all become a part of Network. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, hit the notification bell. Again, takes 2 seconds. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. And guys, again, I will say this because I'd be a bad president if I didn't. Join this movement. Become a part of all the great things that we're doing online, in person, on the ground. We have volunteer opportunities, writing opportunities. We have a newsletter. We're having in-person meetups throughout the country because even though the woke destroyed the atheist meetup apparatus, we're not going to let that be the death of grassroots atheism. So we're doing all these amazing things, and James, I know, is leading many of you guys to us, and I appreciate him for that. So join Atheists for Liberty. Become a member. Join the Discord. Let's get you into the movement. It's 501c3 educational, tax-deductible contributions, guys, all of them, and they're going to be matched, entirely doubled between now and the 31st. So if you guys are making a last-minute donation to a bunch of nonprofits, consider Atheists for Liberty as one of them. We really want you guys in the fight. James, Lindsay, thank you so much for coming on the stream. I'm going to see you all on January 9th. Have a happy new year. Thank you all for tuning in. And James, we're going to get you on the stream and get you more involved in this series and with the org a lot more often. This is a great chat. I appreciate it.